Good afternoon, everybody. This is Gethin again. Thank you for joining us. We have people still coming onto the call, but we'll get started now. For those of you who don't know us, BWD is a creative agency based here in Sydney. I'm the general manager, and sat alongside me is one of our design directors, Chinyi Lam.
Hi, I'm Chinyi. Nice to meet everyone here.
And Chinyi heads up our cross-cultural communications division and works alongside a variety of talented people, from writers to strategists to designers to translators, social media folk, all that sort of thing. So we will be your hosts for today, and we'll take you through for the next sort of 40 minutes or so to talk about how we go about building brands for China, and particularly how we help Australian and New Zealand companies to localize their brand strategy for the China market. But before we do that, we have a message from our sponsor, which is a phrase I've always wanted to say. We're very proud to be a member of the Department of Industry's Growth Services Program. And Tony Shannon is on the line, and he's going to talk to you a little bit more about that program and how else they help businesses around Australia. Hi, Tony.
Oh, hi, Gethin. Hi, Chinyi.
Hi.
Thanks for the introduction. I've always wanted to be introduced as the person who has the message from the sponsor. So it's been a big day for both of us. Yes, so I'm Tony Shannon. Many of you, some of you, a couple of you may have met me previously. I'm a business advisor here at the Entrepreneurs Program, which, as Gethin said, is part of the Department of Industry, Innovation and Science, and perhaps even broadly part of the National Innovation and Science Agenda, or I'd like to think so anyway. Some of you will know about the Entrepreneurs Program. For those of you who don't or are new to it, it has been going for probably the best part of a decade now. It offers about 3 or 4 services to SMEs across the government's identified growth sectors, and for the sector that I'm generally involved with, which is the ICT, digital and professional services sector, who ideally provide services to companies operating in those growth sectors. The main offerings of the Entrepreneurs Program that I'm involved with is the business evaluation, which is a free service. We're a business advisor like myself, and there's about 100 of us around the country. We'll come in to your SME, review all aspects of the business, HR, strategy, finance, product, services, operations, the whole bit. Work with the client to develop an action plan, and once that's been done, the clients can then apply for a grant of up to $20,000 in matched funding to get external consultants to come in and work on some of the identified action items. And that's a highly valued service, not just for the grant funding at the end, but because of the expertise and knowledge and experience that the business advisors can bring to the clients. As Gethin mentioned, we have another service which is growth services, and that's for people who have identified a growth opportunity and want to exploit that with the assistance of the program and a business advisor. And that too comes with another opportunity to dip into the grant funding, and often people do a business evaluation, and some of them then move on to the growth services. And then the final 2 services are accelerating commercialization, which is a big program with big grants for people who've developed a product that needs some money to help them commercialize that. And that's quite a sort of sought after one, but as I say, very competitive. We also have an Innovation Connections program, which can help people with their IT needs, and indeed introducing them to research organisations to help those guys research the gnarly problems that they might have come across in their business. And the latest addition to the family is the Business Design Service, where we have 2 specialist business advisors who specialise in the design thinking, customer centricity, ways of thinking and doing business, and they're available to provide specialist services to clients within the Entrepreneurs Program. So that's a whole lot of information. You might be lucky enough to be able to find some of it on business.gov.au if you search hard enough. Alternatively, get in touch with your preferred business advisor, or anyone's free to send me an email to tshannon@deloitte.com.au. So that's tshannon@deloitte.com.au. And I hope you enjoy and benefit from the presentation. Thanks, Gethin.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. And yeah, we're delighted to be working with Tony on the program. And he and his colleagues have helped us shape our offer as far as our expansion into China. And yeah, they can give you some money as well, which is always nice. And Tony, don't forget to mute yourself now, so in case you snigger away and start talking to people in the background. All right, so let's get into it. So as I say, I'm Gethin, I'm the general manager, and this is Chinyi on the right of the picture. We have worked together for a number of years, working on all sorts of different brands and communication challenges, predominantly for Australian organisations that are going into China, but also people heading into other Asian countries, and indeed brands from other countries outside of Australia. We recently went up to China for a bit of a visit. We had an awesome time.
Yes.
A few stories we don't tell, but yeah, it's a great place. We learned an awful lot. It's a very vibrant, happening city, Shanghai in particular, not too dissimilar to New York, I feel. And so yeah, if you take nothing else away from this seminar today, then I'd encourage you to go and pay a visit. But you're not here to learn about our holiday plans. You're here to learn about localizing your brand strategy. So in order to help us on this journey and to help you shape your brand strategy, we're going to use an ancient Chinese story that's more commonly known as Tansing and the Monkey King. And we're going to use this allegory to help shape the sort of design process that we're going to take you on in the next sort of 40 minutes. And hopefully come to a successful outcome for you and your company. Tansing and the Monkey King is one of 4 kind of key classic Chinese novels. It is about 1,000 pages long. It's got exactly 100 chapters in it, and it's a meandering, mythical, extraordinary tale, in some ways similar to Lord of the Rings, in others more of a kind of almost biblical sort of story in many ways. And I'm now about to attempt to summarize in one slide. Bear with me. And for those of you of Chinese descent, I apologize if I get large sections of this wrong. In short, Tansing is a reluctant hero. In some places I've read, he's an existing monk, a Buddhist monk, who may or may not have been real, and who may or may not have travelled to India along the old Silk Road, where he discovered Buddhism, essentially. But in the novel, he is tasked to find enlightenment for his people. So either the Buddha himself or an emperor says to Tansing, right, you need to go and bring back these 3 scriptures or sutras, as they're known, and find them at the peak of Vulture Peak and return them to his people in China. So Tansing says, all right, I'll do this, in part because he's had some troubles in his past, and in part because he's promised immortality. And he sets off on this challenge. And we learn a few things about his character and his personal weaknesses and traits when he sets off on the trail. And to accompany on his journey, there are 3, sometimes 4 disciples or helpers along the way. Now, the most famous one is the monkey, or the Monkey King. And if you were born in the 1970s, you might well remember the TV show Monkey Magic, and that has the same source material as what I'm describing to you here. And the monkey is his kind of bravest fighter that he has alongside him, and essentially helps Tansing out of a number of problems and challenges that he's faced. The ogre is more of a kind of dependable large friend that kind of accompanies on it and sort of backstops him a lot of the time. The pig, I'm not really sure what role he fulfills. He mostly eats, as far as I can make out, and whines about stuff. But anyway, he's given these three characters, and he's also got a horse that sometimes they say is a helper. And they set off on this trail, and they face something like 40 different challenges. Some of them, kind of mythical creatures. There are lots of spiders and monsters,
Snakes.
and all sorts of gruesome acts. There's quite a lot of bloodshed for allegedly Buddhist monk to undertake. And then ultimately, the kind of big sort of final challenge is one with the white woman, or sometimes known as the white witch. And she's a kind of amorphous figure that tries to deceive Tansing and send him on the wrong path, essentially. But as we would hope, he overcomes this challenge. He crosses the river of life and death and eventually reaches the peak of Vulture Peak to receive these texts and return them to his people in China, and enjoys the success and the fruits that labor brings. How did that do that, Chin Yi?
Yeah, it's very good. It's very close.
Okay.
In China, like from the young people, like 4 or 5 years old until like 7, 8 years, they know the story basically.
Yeah, there's lots of versions of this. I also believe Netflix are making a remake of it in New Zealand at the moment. So interesting to see what they make of that. Now, what does this mean for you? Why am I telling you this story? Well, as a journey, a lot of our clients kind of set a similarly monstrous challenge, I think, to kind of take their business and grow it into this strange and foreign land. And to get there, all of us will need to recognize what strengths we already have and the things we don't have, and build some alliances and choose some partners, many of whom we won't have met before and perhaps we distrust at first, but we're going to need those people to help us on that path. And then we will need to test and try new things in order to overcome that final challenge and develop a brand or a campaign that can be executed in China and hopefully lead to some success. And so hopefully you can see the parallels in that process. As we go through today's talk, we'll kind of check in against that story and reflect on some of the cultural lessons that it shares with us. All right, so that was our prologue, and indeed the Tansing Trail has a very long prologue where we're introduced to all of these characters. And the first step whenever we engage with a new client on a branding project is to really understand where they've come from. So how did they come to be talking to us? What has been the success and the journey they've been on to face today? And we've developed a couple of questionnaires and some interview techniques to really draw that out of our clients, to understand why they're sat in front of us. And it's important to really understand, well, why are you taking on this challenge? Why do you want to go to China? And so we run a workshop to kind of address this question. Often we use the kind of golden circles methodology to kind of understand, well, what is the purpose of this endeavor? Why are you attempting to go to China? And then also understand, well, what are we going to use? How are we going to use that to help us get there? And it was this sort of brief that leads me to my first case study today. And Mike Donoghue, who's I believe on the call at the moment, hi Mike, came to us a couple of months ago and said to us, right, Rockhampton Grammar School is looking to attract some Chinese students to Rocky, or a kind of regional town in central Queensland, and we don't really know how to do this. How can you help us get them in Chile? And we started off by basically asking them lots of questions. We did a series of interviews. We ran a workshop here in Sydney, and then we sent one of our writers, Ming Ming, up to Rocky to interview parents and staff and some local community members to really understand, well, why is Rockhampton an attractive place to send students, and why should Chinese parents trust you to look after their most precious gift. And that was a really interesting process to go through, and it revealed a lot about their school. And then creatively, we converted that information into a series of communications, and at the center of that concept was this Chinese knot, which appears on sort of travel bracelets. Right?
Yeah, yes, exactly. The Chinese knots, like the means, like usually is like to show there's a skill, you have a good trip, safety, and that's kind of idea. So we use this Chinese knot like as a design metaphor to apply into the design.
It's equivalent to a Saint Christopher, if you're of a different background. And so this knot and this kind of journey metaphor ran throughout the creative, and we designed a prospectus for the school that really tried to highlight the key differences and benefits of an education in Rockhampton versus somewhere else around the world, or indeed other capital cities in Australia. And so we were really highlighting the different experiences and the unique experiences you can have in beautiful central Queensland. Rocky has obviously not too far away from the Great Barrier Reef, and Rockhampton Grammar School has an amazing marine biology unit that does some fantastic work in that area. So we kind of put that environment and that opportunity on the front cover, and then we went on to talk about the town itself, the kind of academic excellence that they bring to their students, and also to highlight the kind of authentic Australian experience that you'll enjoy in Rockhampton that perhaps you won't get if you came to a school in a sort of central CBD. So that was a fantastic project, and we really enjoyed working with Mike, and he kindly wrote us a nice testimonial earlier this week that we're delighted to share with you. And I also give shouts out to Blue Star Printing, Aaron in particular, who helped us to print all of their materials in their plants in Beijing, and also to Ming Ming and a couple of other people who helped us with this project. So thank you, Mike, and yeah, if anybody wants to know a bit more about Rockhampton, then feel free to get in touch. So that's the first kind of step, understanding the question of why we're doing this. Now it's a question of, well, where do we start? And one of the sort of practical questions that this often brings up is where to base ourselves, or indeed where to launch a brand initially within China. And one of the key things Chini always points out to me is China is the size of Europe, right? And it has as much cultural difference as Europe does. And if you were scoping a campaign for Spain versus Germany or Sweden, or indeed the UK, you would expect to try and present yourself and even talk in different languages and think about different benefits. And the same applies throughout China. And Jinyi kind of generally highlights three kind of main regions to think about when first setting off for China.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Giddens. The whole China is huge. Every province have a different culture, and also the economy level is kind of quite different. Let's say let's just pick up three kind of main areas to talk through. First, I talk to Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. So we know that Beijing is a capital and also the center of government. So you can see a lot of banking, financials in the Beijing area, and also a lot of automobile, the big industry, heavy industry, set in Beijing, this area. And then in Shanghai, Shanghai is much more, is the largest economy center in China. So a lot of global brands, they set in Shanghai, like Coca-Cola's and Pepsi, and Nike. There are a lot of brands setting there. And also in terms of design, you can see a lot of these international influence, like 4A companies in Shanghai. Meanwhile, in Shenzhen is considered the south areas and a lot of Canton's influence. Like mainly they speak Cantonese in Shenzhen, including Guangzhou and Hong Kong. Another thing, because Shenzhen is kind of close to Hong Kong, there's so much influence over there. Hong Kong is we know there's like influence from British a lot, culture as well. At the point because of the Western influence, the innovative like it's kind of starting the area too.
So that gives you a sense of some of the cultural differences, and also where some of the main industries are focused. If you'd like to read more about this, then we've published an article, and you can copy that link there if you want to read more on this topic. And these kind of cultural differences come through in all sorts of different ways. On screen now are a series of red envelopes, which are given as gifts at Chinese New Year and on other occasions. And you can see some of the different cultural influences in the design of these envelopes from different provinces from within China.
Yeah. I found it really interesting. Like last year, they have these competitions like to design a red envelope. So at the end, they collect like all the design from different provinces. I just pick up some of them. So I just talk through a few only. Like for the left side, top left side, Xinjiang. So Xinjiang, you can see that because there's a lot of Islam cultures, so the design that use the typography is kind of Islamic kind of typography for the design. And then if you go to the second one, the blue one is Mongolia. You use the patterns or that kind of color. Usually blue is not that much using in Chinese New Year, but blue is kind of quite prominent color for Mongolia. So they kind of use the color and the pattern from the Mongolia. Then we go for the Beijing. Beijing at right top. So you can see the design is kind of gold because they want to show the power because it's the center of the China and also government part. And the last one will be the Hainan, the bottom side, because Hainan they call like tropical Hawaii. So you can see like the kind of palm trees and kind of relaxed kind of ideas kind of flow on the design. Yeah. Yeah,
it's nice. So obviously these are more traditional designs, but you do see this come through in marketing campaigns as well. And a lot of brands, particularly sort of Chinese national brands, will tailor their communication message depending on the audience they're speaking to. And also you can see some of these design influences coming through in how they position their brands. And like I say, if you'd like to read more about that topic, you can check out our article on our website. So with the question of where we might start, there's then another question of, well, what do we already have and how might we use that to best effect? And so Chinyi and I and our colleague Chris Chatfield, hello Chris, if you're listening, have been working on a new tool or application that doesn't have a catchy name yet, but it's an authenticity test, essentially. And the purpose of this is to say, right, if you are a successful national brand, how do you go about globalizing that strategy? So how do you go about showing that you understand your local market, but maintain the qualities and the provenance of your original brand? And so we've developed a tool that we use in a series of workshops to kind of really start to unpick, well, what have we got that works for us? Do we think it's essential to maintain that? Or is it possible that we could localize some of those elements? So I've just picked out a couple of the questions that we cover in those sorts of sessions, and also a few examples of how other companies have addressed these kinds of issues. So firstly, we talk about, well, what industry are you in? Because there are some norms within those industries that you see lots of companies following, but you may also choose to challenge them. So for example, your sort of large multinational financial service and property companies, they tend to maintain sort of one global brand and presence. Lots of legal and education establishments might be named after a person or a town, and therefore also do the same. But you do tend to find in other sectors, particularly food and healthcare, that they are either going to launch a new brand or change their name, or indeed change the benefits or the perceived benefits of their product because of the local audience and how they actually enjoy that foodstuff or what they feel the benefit is of a particular healthcare product. Secondly, we'll talk about sort of naming conventions. And there is a lot of work goes into this space. There are organizations out there that just spend their time translating names and doing the research around it. And again, it's a case-by-case example here. You can start with a literal translation, but often that might have unintended consequences. And Xunyi pulled together this kind of summary of some of the brands and their translations and how he felt they had gone.
Yes, yeah, naming is one kind of tricky part, like for the localizations of a brand basically. So as Gator mentions, authentic test is kind of quite important to bring to this naming. So here there's some example. For the left side, I just pick up some of them, like could be better area. So basically, all the name that I put here is not means that they totally feel or anything. It's just like some of them it could be make it better. For example, like recently the Airbnb case study. So in Chinese, it names like "ai bing yin." I mean, like the sound is nice, like kind of much with the English, and also the meaning very nicely like present. Just like read some article like local people that feel that it's not inspired enough. Like they either like suggest like could be only 2 words like "ai bing," like it means that like welcomes love like the guest for that name. So another example is like Spotify. Spotify in Chinese is Sen Po Tian. The sound is kind of close as well. It's just like it's always a promise from the meaning. In Chinese, it means that sound breaks the cloud of breaking the heavens, like a little bit too over promise. That kind of
sound of the heavens. Okay.
Yeah. So then we go for the media side. It sounds good and good meaning. So sounds good, like pretty much like they just translate the sound of the English name. Like for example, Sing Barker. So it basically is not mean much, but it sounds like kind of pretty cool. But you can see that that's kind of name work very well in China. You can see like every corner you can see Starbucks over there. Yeah. Then at the bottom, good meanings that they get the meaning, but the sound not that kind of accurate. So let's say like TripAdvisor. The Chinese name they use the Mao Tou Ying, means owl. It's basically totally different sound from the English name, but they just pick up the meaning from the logo. And they change the Chinese Mao Tou Ying, they change in the middle words. Mao Tu Ying is kind of travels, like to type into the logo. It's kind of creative, but it still work very well on that part. And also like 4 season, they just translate to the 四季 is kind of 4 season meaning for the hotel. Then on the right side is like can achieve both sides. Good sound and good meaning. This is always like kind of difficult. You want to achieve like both in the same together. The classic example is a Coca-Cola. In Chinese name, it's called 可口可乐. It means that tastes good and happiness. And then I think perfectly like kind of suit the Coca-Cola positioning. Another is IKEA. IKEA Chinese Ikea is kind of same sound. And the meaning also like really good. It's kind of easy house furniture. It's perfectly. The last one, another one is a Carrefour. It's a Cheller food. So sounds kind of similar. The meanings from the Carrefour, it means that happy families, like that kind of cool.
So yes, if you can get it to sound similar to your British name and also, or your English name, I should say, and also you get that meaning appropriate, then you're onto a good thing. But there's a lot of time and effort goes into getting that right, but it does lead to great rewards. All right, another area that we address with our authenticity test is the question of provenance, and this might be more important for some products and some industries than others. And Xunyi gathered together this infographic to explain sort of perceptions or Chinese perceptions of different countries around the world. And depending what industry you're in, for example, if you're a food company in Australia, you can see why, yeah, you would want to promote that kind of brand Australia message. Whereas if you're from another country around the world, you might find that those perceived benefits to your advantage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's kind of important. Like for example, the example for the New Zealand at the bottom side. So I think the milk powders they use kind of tie into the basics, the kind of relaxed, naturals, hygienic, clean, and not polluted. The kind of perceptions. It could be helped to build up your products and brands in China.
And so essentially, once we've gone through the process, and as I say, there's 40 questions that we pose, we then kind of deliver the results that says, well, this is the sort of profile we think is right for your business. And it sort of assesses whether you should stay global or go entirely local or something in between. And we also overlay that with some kind of industry-specific information to see if you want to challenge what the norms are for your industry. And it's proving a very successful technique. I thought I've shared this example in previous webinars, but it bears sharing again. For a Manuka honey client of ours from New Zealand, they asked us to come up with a shopper marketing campaign aimed primarily at Chinese tourists or Chinese Australians who were buying honey around Chinese New Year, and they were probably sending it back to China as a gift. And Chinyi and the team came up with this creative to promote the product at that time of year. And there's a number of interesting factors that we were playing with here. Firstly, we chose to maintain the the packaging of the product because it had all the terms and conditions required for Australia and New Zealand, and that had the added benefit of proving the provenance of it. So there isn't actually any Chinese on the packaging, but then Chinyi came up with the headline message that you see on the left here that talks about what?
Yes, in the creative process, we're really looking for the opportunity for the creative issue. So for this instance, because it's for the Chinese New Year, we try to look at something related with Chinese New Year too. So in Chinese New Year's, most of the people would like to hang words inside the house, like for example, prosperity, happiness, and Happy New Year, so to celebrate the New Year. So in this case, we look at opportunity for the logo, the Chinese name. Is the end of the Chinese name, they have this Kang, it means healthy. So we use this as an opportunity to put in a visual to show that, to wish or to bless that is a healthy New Year's for everyone. Yeah.
So, yeah. A happy, healthy, and prosperous New Year, essentially, and sort of linked it back to the benefits of the product itself. Okay, so we've talked about why you're doing this, where you might start, what you've got already in place, and how you might tailor it. The next thing is to talk about the partners or the allies you might need. Do you need a Monkey King by your side? Or are you going to be slowed by the pig that has chosen to accompany you? Let's hope not. And yeah, there's lots of lessons to be learned here. I'm sure many of you are already on this path. And it does take some brave decision making and also placing your trust in people that you may not know that well initially. There may be language barriers to overcome as well as geographical barriers. And it often requires you to place more trust in your suppliers than you would if you were dealing within a domestic market. But the results can be outstanding as a result. And many of you will be familiar with the notion of guanxi. And this has a kind of, is translated to more talk about the relationships, the respect and the face you can build with your Chinese partners before you can start doing business. And building that guanxi and building that respect and trust is vital to doing business. We talked a lot about this in a previous webinar, which again you can find on our website. but it remains critical to success. And often this kind of stakeholder management is also defined as influence and marketing. And so an example of that we completed end of last year was for the Australian Meat Processing Corporation. And they were, they've been asked to host a delegation of ministers from the Chinese Department of Agriculture who are coming to Australia on a fact-finding mission, and we're also looking to build some trade relations with meat processors around the country. And so they asked us, well, how do you want to host these people? How do you want to look after them? And what do you want to say to them? And I've just noticed I'm in this picture. There's my bald head. We produced a number of things for this event. We shot a couple of videos. We featured some people we've met on our trip to Shanghai. We produced some lovely gift packs. We designed this report that you see on the left that talks about the supply chain, the quality of product that we have here in Australia, some of the issues that are affecting the industry, and also some of the solutions and technological advancements that Australia has pioneered, and shared this with the delegation before they set off on a trip around the country. And the feedback was sensational, and they were very appreciative of what we'd done, and they immediately offered to host Peter and his team on a return trip to China, and they have built lots of profitable deals as a result of that visit and the ongoing dialogue they're having with these people. So ensuring, that you think through all the stakeholders that can help you on your journey is a vital part of a successful brand strategy. Likewise, if you're dealing in a digital environment, there's other influencer tools out there that can help you at a more practical level. And I recently spoke to a lady called Kim, who has built an app called Parklu, P-A-R-K-L-U, which is designed primarily for retail or fashion brands who are looking to promote their products through social media. And so Parklu basically connects what they call key opinion leaders or calls with brands that want to sell their products to Chinese customers. And they've got some fantastic stats, and it's a really interesting tool if you want to have a play around with this, and there are lots of others as well out there. But if that's a path you want to go down, then worth checking out Parklu. Okay, so we worked out why we're heading on this journey. We know what we've got. We know who we might need to help with this. Now it's about undertaking some of the trials and tribulations. For Townsend, that involved fighting a town of women at one stage. There were some giant spiders, lots of dragons and serpents.
No dragons.
No dragons?
No dragons.
Okay.
We got snake, yeah.
Snakes. All right, we'll settle for snakes. So, comparatively, the trials and tribulations you might face might not be quite that dangerous, but might be as equally as taxing. And there are lots of things we do here in terms of user testing and customer research. But as we're focusing on brand strategy today, I thought I'd look at a couple of the branding tools that we apply. And there's basically a series of these tools that we workshop to try and come up with the right answer for our clients. Many of you will be familiar with the notion of brand archetypes and how many successful brands fit a particular sort of archetypal personality, so that you can instantly recognize what they're about. And some of those same principles apply in China, but of course the archetypes, those foundational characters, a bit like Tangxing and the Monkey King, are different. And so there are other tools out there to help you with this localization challenge.
Yeah, exactly. This is a brand personalities from archive models. So pretty much a lot of company they use it in China's as to personalize the brand and product. So because the main reason is like to differentiate the product and the company, and also like to get better relationship with the consumers. So here is the 5 keys that usually people use it. It's a sincerity, excitement, competence, sophistications, and ruggedness. So from here, and also in China, they have a Chinese version comparables. So basically, like if you are a person, if you have these 5 points, that means that you're 100% perfect guys, that kind of stuff.
So essentially, what we do is we look at your Western brand or your national brand, see if you display these characteristics, and then we apply them to see how they would fit for a localized China brand. So you can see the parallels that would fit there.
Yeah, exactly. So pretty much the Chinese version is kind of very similar with in a Western way, but only the 2 main is a little bit more different, especially the compassionate and kind. So these areas, like in Chinese people, because like it's talk about like it's not only individuals, it's talk about a group as well. So in this term, people would like include the group people together, as same as the happiness and joys. So they will be included like group happiness and also the individual happiness. Like let's say the Coca-Cola, you can see some of the apps like they kind of include the group people play together. Yeah, that kind of directions. So this is some of the example that we pick it up. So just to give some idea like how this personalized could be applied into, and this has been used and been researched from source. So let's say for the OLEs, relatable wise completions, and to show that it's like they use the famous people, actors, and Maggie Cheung, one of the Hong Kong famous artists. And because of the name of Chinese name, they got Yu in the name. So I think pretty much they use it to give the more relatables from that kind of perspective.
So yeah, and then on the right hand side of this page, what Chinyu has sort of shared with you is how often local Chinese brands will depict these sorts of values or these personalities, pureness, friendliness, and kindness. But global brands, when they come into the market, they might display a different set of values, in part because they've got that foreign element to them that makes them feel perhaps more sophisticated or a bit different. And then in trying it, you might feel a bit more adventurous. And those sorts of values might not be ones that you would display back here in Australia or elsewhere around the world. But you might want to think about pushing those to the fore in your local brand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of quite important, kind of to look at this kind of personality ways to do the localization brands. Yeah.
And so, once we've undertaken those trials and we've gone through the workshops and maybe done some further research, we then respond with our brand strategy, and obviously that's tailored to each individual company, and hopefully you get to enjoy the success of some of these international brands. And if you're looking for some great case studies, then these 3 are certainly 3 that you could look into. And often what we'll come up with at the end of that process is a brand platform or a kind of summary of what that strategy might be. This was for a large energy company that we've been helping here in Australia, and how they're looking to promote themselves. And with that in place, then of course comes the kind of creative development process. And I won't go into too much detail here today, but yeah, we go through a rigorous kind of creative process. With particularly for Chinese brands, there's a lot more depth of meaning. There's a lot of metaphor and subtle cultural references in terms of colors and all those sorts of things that we've covered in previous webinars. But it is a really rich and interesting space to play in. And then, of course, we need to work hard to execute the campaign successfully in market, and then, yeah, enjoy a successful launch. So I'm not going to stress on those 3 areas today because we're more about the strategic, but I will just flick through a couple of examples of some of the design that we've developed here, and you'll see Junyi in particular likes a visual metaphor in his design and how we go about structuring some of the communications that we produce for our clients. This one in particular had a very interesting metaphor of Chinese checkers behind it, which was very, very well received. All right, so that brings us just about on time to the end of today's webinar. I suppose my final thoughts on this opportunity is that China is evolving very quickly. I've only been there recently myself and was amazed by how vibrant and interesting and fun a place it was to visit. So firstly, I would encourage you to do that. But secondly, from a branding perspective, people are open to new challenges. You see lots of people stepping out of the traditional red and golden colors and trying all sorts of interesting takes on brands now. So we would encourage you not to be afraid of trying something new in your design. But the most important thing, I think, is to really stop to consider your own perception of your brand and challenge that to think about how might other people perceive the same information. Junyi often uses this example in our presentations to talk about cultural perception and how it influences design. On the left here we have a Western artist's painting of a deer, and you can see the proud individual that this deer is. Whereas on the right you have an Eastern artist who has taken the same subject matter but considered it in its broader kind of environmental place in the world, and how it kind of is all part of this one great ecosystem. And that, in a way, as a metaphor, shows how different cultural backgrounds influence branding and design. And I think it's an important lesson for all of us to consider. So that's all we have time for today. I usually stop and ask people for questions, but then we very rarely receive any. So as we've gone slightly over time, I will say thank you. Should you wish to get in contact with us, you can see our email, our web address there, and I'd be happy to take any questions you may have about your branding challenge. But for now, I will say thank you, share, enjoy your afternoon, and good luck with your journey.
All right, share.
Thank you. Bye-bye.